Hello everybody, NFIHammer here with another Necron painting video. Today I am painting Nekrosor Ammentar, which I'm super excited about because not only is this model really unique and interesting, but it's also a new release from Games Workshop. And since I've started my Warhammer painting journey, I've never really painted a model, as it's come out. So it's a very exciting time for me and interested to see what my beginner painting skills can turn this model into. As I said in the intro, this is one of the first new models that I've gotten that is sort of a new release from Games Workshop. So if you've been following on my painting journey, I've been buying a lot of Necrons from the Imperium magazine because it's a really cheap and affordable way to get started. But I've been slowly building up my Necron army now. You can follow all of the videos here on YouTube. And I'm sort of finishing all the cheap models that you can kind of get. And my sister was kind enough for my birthday to give me a voucher, which I used to buy this Nekrosor Ammentar. And I think he's a cool looking model. Like, I enjoy the ones that aren't sort of humanoid, skeleton body things. They kind of get a bit boring after you've painted like 20 warriors and 10 immortals and stuff. So I appreciate Games Workshop sort of doing something really quite different here. And I'm just using the normal Citadel plastic glue and just trying to clean up the mold lines. I was a little bit worried at first that this would be like a flayed one situation where it's really difficult and finicky to put together, but I actually found like Games Workshop has done a really good job here, making it probably one of the most simple and straightforward models that I've put together. It is a monopose model, so there really isn't too much customization, but it does come with this awesome terrain set piece that it's sitting on top of. So what I'm doing here is I'm just putting some desert sand and stone, but any sort of texture would work here, and some PVA glue, and I'm just trying to fill in the edges around where the gap between the circle base and the terrain kind of have a gap. You could probably not worry about it, but I don't really like the base being super visible because it's really flat. And then I'm just using some Rust-Oleum Ultra Matte Black spray paint. I've been having a lot of troubles with my priming, so I'm trying out a new technique where I'm putting it on top of a wheelie bin outside, and it seemed to turn out okay. The Ultra Matte gives it a bit of a shiny finish. Here's it completed with the base, but I'll go through how I got the base painted at the end of the video if you're interested. So I'm starting off this time with Leadbelcher and a makeup brush that I stole from my wife, and I'm just doing an over brushing technique here. So it's kind of like dry brushing, except you don't get a lot of the paint off, and it just allows you to really quickly, like in a matter of a couple of minutes, cover the majority of the model. And with the black primer, makes the silver really pop out really easily. And it doesn't reach all the recesses, but that's fine because of the black undercoat. That's just looks like shadows. And then the Necron bread and butter, the Runelord Brass here. I'm just picking out any sort of areas that are armor. So in my head canon, when I'm painting these models, I try and come up with like a visual language. So any sort of armor plating, I usually paint brass. Any sort of joints and stuff, I paint silver and so forth. And it was actually really quick getting all the brass stuff painted. Usually with these Necrons, that takes a really long time. So I've jumped straight into the Warpstone Glow, which is a Citadel layer paint. And I'm just painting out all of these sort of energy circles that he has. He has quite a few on his armor plates, and he has some on his many arms as well. And I'm just trying to paint the recesses in particular. And the reason why I do that is now with the Moot Green, I can actually just paint sort of the top half of those circles, and it creates kind of like a glowing effect really simply. And we'll come back later and actually add another layer to it. But even at this point, it looks pretty good. And don't forget to paint the, phase hypersword things, whatever they're called, green as well. And I also use Rhinox Hide, which is usually like a browny color. I like to paint that over the black claws and whatever you call these drill bits or spikes. And because of the black undercoat, it kind of gives it a titanium sort of rusted metal look. It's not everybody's cup of tea, but I find that it kind of just adds another color to the model. And as Necrons love their bling, I'm using Retributor Gold here to pick out any of the bits. It's a bit of a bad camera angle here, but he's got this chest plate with the sigil on it, and I also try and color in any circles now on these Necron models with gold and the top of the gun. And I just do this just to add like a little bit of bling to the unit. And this is a new paint that I've gotten recently that I'm trying to get better at, but it's Black Templar, which is a black contrast paint. So I'm painting the grooves of the spine, as well as these sorts of spike things. And I wanted to sort of darken up the armor plating. A lot of the Necrons, it's very shiny and pristine, but I feel like this guy, because he's like driven mad, it doesn't really make sense for him to have a shiny one. And moving on to white now, so I'm just putting a little dollop of white in the eyes, just for it to glow, as well as on these Moot Green circles, and you'll see why in a moment. But I'm just trying to pick sort of the apex or the top of the energy orbs. As well, he has this like warpstone rock, which I've actually done recently for the Void Dragon model. And so what I'm doing now is once I've painted that rock white, I'm using the Akhelian Green, which in my opinion is blue, but maybe I'm colorblind, and I'm going over that rock with that. And what this does is kind of creates a glowing effect that I think is pretty cool, and it really stands out with the green in the rest of the model because it's that different color. And then I'm going over it with a Dark Angel's green, and because it's a translucent paint, the green and the blue sort of meld together to sort of create this warp energy field. And I was really happy with how it turned out in the Catan shard of the Void Dragon that you can see here. I really wanted to replicate that because I like my models kind of all sharing the same visual language. And sticking with the contrast paints, I'm also using Warp Lightning here. And I'm painting the Lahiem medium first onto it, so I could kind of spread it around. And while I think that does create a good blending technique, I like the hard edges on these phase blades, so I kind of went away from that. So I'm just kind of painting it on half of it and then using a Q-tip to get the rest. And then for edge highlighting, I'm using Gauss Blaster Green. Usually I use like a yellow color for the edge highlighting, but I found this color is really quite an interesting, unique color, and I just wanted an excuse to use it. The edge highlighting is something that I really need to get better at, but it does help the weapons really stand out from the rest of the model because it's three-dimensional. You need that kind of edge to help differentiate it. And with the Runelord Brass, it looks very shiny, plasticky. So with the Agrax Earthshade, it allows it to sort of give it a richer color, as well as go into those recesses and create that like damaged, battle-hardened look, and just makes it look less plasticky and more like a living metal. And then finally with the Tesseract Glow, which is a technical paint by Games Workshop, I'm going to go over all those areas that we painted white before, as well as sort of the edges of the silver, And what this does is create like a object source lighting effect where the energy globes are actually glowing, and that has an effect on the nearby metals. I am not really great at this technique, but giving it a go. And so for the bases, I like to start off with a Stormvermin Fur, but any sort of grey colour would work here. And I'm just trying to, I've watered it down quite a lot, and I'm using a very thick brush. And I'm just trying to cover up everything. But because of the black undercoat, I've needed to come back with a second layer, just because it was a bit too dark without it. And to make the bases look alien, I'm using two purples, a Phoenician purple and a Dechala Lilac purple, and I'm just doing a really quick, dry brushing technique, but I probably had too much on my brush here, and so the base ends up being a little more purple than I like. I'm kind of going for more of a hint, but this was a bit too strong, and then I didn't want to waste the paint, so I did a little bit of dry brushing on the model of the actual ruins. And you can see in the background here is actually other terrain. So I try and make all my terrain kind of look like it's all on the same battlefield. So using this white color, I'm just sort of painting any particular rocks on the terrain, which is probably a technique I'm going to try and steal in some other models now, is just cut up little bricks and put them on the model just to kind of give it that battle texture. I switched to a different white, Corax White now, and I'm painting the Mechanicus symbol here. You can see is on the top of this canister, and you can see it in the background as well, so it's like half white, half black. So I'm just trying to pick up those details, but again, it helps build the world building thing. And then I also have red for the metal steel plates, and so I'm just trying to duplicate that here. It's actually a different red. This is Evil Sunz Scarlet, but I used to use Mephiston red, but I accidentally left the cover off and the paint went dry. So this is the only other red color I have, and I've decided to also paint the big canister here red as well. And I didn't want to use the same color of Runelord Brass again, because I use that a lot on the Necron model itself, and this is sort of Imperial technology, but my metal colors are very limited at the moment. So I just kind of went with it. I don't know, maybe a different color would have been better, but I'm just trying to carefully not get any on the actual stone and just keep it on the metal parts. And I left some metal parts unpainted just to kind of break it up. So anything that looks metal that I didn't paint, I'm coming across now with Leadbelcher, which again is the same color I use painting the Necron model, such as these like metal spikes coming out of the stone, and certain pipe junctions. Just trying to, break up the visual language so there isn't just like one giant area of copper or silver. And then again, I'm getting that contrast black Templar paint out, and I'm just trying to fill in any of the cracks here, just because I really want this ruin to look like it's very cracked. And I have to kind of come back later and fix up some of those because I got the paint in areas that I shouldn't have. And I'm just sort of using this to just darken up all the metal. And then I've got Seraphim Sepia here, which is a sort of like the name suggests, a sepia color, but I'm using that to kind of stain the stone to give it that really weathered look. And because I've got the black Templar in the cracks, it's kind of creating a very weathered and destroyed ruin, which is what the vibe is. I might have to go over this a couple of times. And then I'm just getting Abaddon Black here, which is a black color, and I put way too much on my giant brush here, and I'm putting a really thick coat. and I'm just cleaning up the rims. It makes a really big difference having those clean rims on the model to kind of make it invisible to the human eye so that the model stands out. And then I'm using some Gamer Grass Alien Tufts here of Alien Turquoise and Fire Bright. And I'm just trying to putting some of these clumps into the model. I don't really like this bright color here, so I've kind of tucked it hidden away between these two ruins, and when the model goes on top, it's kind of a smaller look. So now we're ready to assemble the whole thing together. So I've just got some generic super glue. I didn't really put them in the exact spot that he should live, but as long as his hand is kind of holding on to the ruins, and I go way overboard here with super glue, which was a bit of an accident. But the model is all finished, and I think he looks really awesome. I didn't go with the glowing tail just because it didn't really suit my Canoptic race and my other models. To me, it was just too much glowing green. I think there's already a lot of Gauss energy on the body. I didn't want the tail to sort of distract from that. But yeah, it was really fun. I love my birthday present. Thank you to my sister for buying that for me. And I had heaps of fun with this model. And I really hope Games Workshop releases some new models in 11th edition that I can paint. Anyway, until next time, thanks for watching. Bye.